After months of hype and a short, albeit frustrating delay, the TurboGrafx-16 Mini will be hitting store shelves later this week, and I couldn't be more excited. With games like Ninja Spirit, Splatterhouse, and Eastbook 1 and 2, the Turbo was one of my favorite systems growing up, and I love that a new generation of gamers will finally have a chance to discover what made the 16-bit console so great. To help celebrate the TurboGrafx Mini, we're going to be taking a look at the system's most iconic hero. I'm of course talking about the Bonk Trilogy, which was so popular that it managed to spawn 2 spin-offs, a Game Boy port, and even a Super Nintendo sequel. So turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the story and endings for Bonk's Adventure, Bonk's Revenge, and Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. This is Game Over, the early years. Released exactly 30 years ago, Bonk was the Turbo's answer to Mario. I'm not just saying that because they both have big heads and like to jump on floating platforms, because they both revolve around rescuing the princess from a big, evil dude who lives in a castle. The big difference in Bonk's Adventure is that it takes place in 10,000 BC, and instead of Princess Toadstool, the lovely lady we're rescuing here is Dragon Princess Za. Also, Bonk doesn't jump on enemies, he headbutts them. See, they're completely different. Now, in case you're wondering, it's King Drool who's kidnapped the princess. It's not initially clear why, but Bonk sets out to do the right thing and save the day. Is it because he knows Princess Za? Or is he just a do-gooder who feels like he has a unique set of skills to get the job done? I don't know. Again, it's super unclear. I think you're just gonna have to go with me on this one. The point is, he travels through the prehistoric world fighting off dinosaurs and eating raw meat. Oh, and his head explodes from time to time, but don't worry because that's actually a good thing. What Bonk quickly realizes is that the bosses he's battling have all been brainwashed. In fact, they all want to help us find the princess and go back home to Moonland. Yeah, that's all well and good and all, but in the end we discover that they're all once again brainwashed and told to stop us from getting to King Drool. This means fighting the bosses one more time, which leads to an intense battle against a woman and her remote-controlled T-Rector head car. But here's where things get weird. Once we smash the car, the woman in the chair turns out to be Princess Za, who floats down and reveals the brainwashing plot. She knows where King Drool is, but it's going to involve taking an elevator to the stars and to Moonland, which is where our final battle awaits. It's here where we go head-to-head with King Drool to prove once and for all that size doesn't matter. After a few well-placed headbutts, we take Drool's crown, and this is what happens next. So now that we've defeated King Drool, brought peace to Moonland, and fallen in love, what more is there for Bonk to do? Well, as it turns out, the villain of the first game had a grandson, and King Drool III is out for revenge. He's constructing the Monster Kingdom, where he'll amass an army and destroy the world in an effort to get back at Bonk. It's our hero's job to stop King Drool III by going to the Monster Kingdom and headbutting everything that gets in the way. Now look, don't get me wrong, that's a solid enough setup for a sequel, but is it really Bonk's revenge? If I'm being honest, this sounds more like the Drool family revenge, and Bonk just so happens to get roped into another crisis. In fact, the instruction manual specifically states that the Monster Kingdom is incomplete and still under construction. So what the hell, King Drool III hasn't even enacted his dastardly plot yet. In reality, the game probably should have been called Bonk's Preemptive Strike Against King Drool's Revenge, but I guess that's not as catchy as Bonk's Revenge. Anyway, the big third act reveal is that King Drool III has stolen half of the moon and created something he likes to call the Moon Pyramid. This is a punishing stage full of boxes and conveyor belts and lava pits and even a pirate. In fact, you'll face all of those bosses over again, just like the first game. The only difference is that they aren't under mind control and you've already kicked their butts. So if you really think about it, they're the ones getting revenge on Bonk. Man, this title really doesn't make any sense, does it? Ultimately, the game ends with Bonk making his way to the top of the Moon Pyramid, where he goes up against this Mega Man X boss before battling head-to-head with King Drool III. This is a surprisingly epic fight, thanks in large part to the big firewall in the background. Don't worry, because Bonk once again uses his head to defeat Drool, and this is what happens next. Now, by the time we got to Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure, the developers had completely given up on writing a story. Not that the series had ever been that interested in having a deep narrative, but this one repeats all the same beats without even bothering to tell us about it. In case you're wondering, the evil King Drool III is back, and he has once again taken the top half of Moonland and decided to chain it to the bottom of the ocean. This sends Bonk on a mission through the kingdom of the dinosaurs, where he'll once again butt heads and eat raw meat. The big gimmick in Bonk 3 is that our hero can grow real big and then shrink down to be teeny tiny. And as it turns out, so can King Drool III. While the head-to-head battle at the end of this game isn't as epic as the one found in Bonk's Revenge, I gotta say it's a lot more fun thanks to the characters changing size. After an enjoyable back and forth, Bonk ends up defeating the evil King Drool III one last time, and this is what happens next. Now look, it could be argued that the mascot platformer genre has a bad habit of coming up short when it comes to endings. Sure, we all remember the cinema at the end of Sonic CD, or even the dream stuff in Super Mario Bros. 2. But far too often, we get mediocre conclusions just like the Bonk Trilogy. And what annoys me isn't that they're bad, but rather that they don't build to anything. Bonk 3 could fit into the series in any order, because it's not really the end of a story. It's just the same story all over again, this time with a 2-player mode and a CD soundtrack. I mean, unless you bought the HuCard version, that is. Now, if you're thinking that it's the TurboGrafx-16 that's the reason why these endings suck, then let me clear that up right now. Here's how Super Bonk ended when it was released on the Super Nintendo just 1 year later. See, you don't even need any context. It uses Mode 7 effects and is a little bit more colorful, I guess, but outside of that, it's identical to what you would expect on the Turbo. And you know, maybe that's why Bonk fizzled out after only a few installments. They never built on the characters or made you care about their plight. In fact, if you don't read the 2 or 3 sentence story in the instruction manual, then you'll basically have no idea what's going on for like 90% of these games. And instead of growing the cast with memorable villains, they just keep repeating the same looking bad guy. Guys, I'm not saying that Bonk needs to have a deep story or anything, but these games shouldn't leave me with more questions than answers. I think this might be why I prefer Bonk's futuristic relative Zonk. Now those were great games. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, the early years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes almost every week. Now here's the question I have for you. Who is your favorite mascot character? The Mario, Sonic, Bonk, or somebody really obscure? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're as excited about the TurboGrafx Mini as I am, then you should know that we're going to be back later this week with an epic, and I mean epic, countdown of every TurboGrafx review published in Electronic Gaming Monthly. Oh boy, we're going to be counting down to see which one comes out on top, and trust me, it's a real horse race, and you're definitely going to want to tune in for that. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.